Captain Elias Kane stood alone on the edge of the desert plains, his boots pressing lightly into the reddish sand. The wind carried tiny grains that stung like pinpricks, but he hardly noticed. His eyes were fixed on the ruins ahead, a city once alive with vibrant towers, now silent and broken. The remnants of alien architecture rose from the ground like jagged teeth, their colors faded by the relentless sun. Even from a distance, Elias could feel the pulse of the place, a strange hum of old energy lingering beneath the cracked stones. He adjusted the strap of his pack and scanned the horizon. There was no sign of life, at least none that moved openly. The silence was complete, broken only by the occasional whisper of the wind through collapsed corridors. But Elias knew better than to trust silence. His years of traveling war-torn planets had taught him that quiet often hid danger, and then... At first, Elias thought it might be another scavenger, or one of the wild creatures rumored to roam this region. But as the figure drew closer, he noticed the unusual skin color, a soft blue that shimmered faintly under the sun. It was a child, or at least childlike in size, with large eyes that seemed to glow in the harsh light. Her posture was stiff, almost frozen. Every step she took was hesitant, as if the ground itself might betray her. Elias lowered his hand slightly, resting it near the side of his utility belt, not in preparation for a fight, but in a gesture of calm. He had seen fear before, and he recognized it immediately. This was not the fear of a wild animal startled by humans. This was the fear of someone who had seen destruction. Someone who had learned that people like him could be dangerous, but perhaps, in rare cases, not all of them. He remembered stories of her kind, tales that had reached Earth through scattered interstellar communications. Lyra's people were known for their intelligence, their curiosity, and their deep connection with their environment. They had once built a thriving civilization, but warships, human warships, had reduced much of it to ash. Elias had not been part of that destruction. He had been elsewhere, on a mission far from this sector. Yet, he carried the weight of humanity's reputation on his shoulders, and he knew she would judge him before she even spoke. The girl stopped about 20 meters away. Her small hands hovered near her chest, as though to protect herself from a world that had proven cruel. She trembled visibly, not just from fear, but from anticipation. Elias's instincts told him she wanted to trust him, but she was uncertain whether she could. "Hey," he called softly, keeping his voice low, steady, and non-threatening. "I'm not here to hurt you." She flinched at the sound, but didn't run. That was the first sign of hope he had seen all day. Elias crouched slightly, lowering himself to appear smaller, less imposing. "My name is Elias Kane. I can help you," he said. "I know your people have suffered, and I want to help." Her large eyes scanned his face, searching for any sign of deception. He didn't speak any of her language perfectly, but the few words he had learned were enough to communicate safety. "My name." "Lyra," she said in a soft, hesitant tone, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias nodded. "Lyra, that's a beautiful name. Can you come closer? You're safe with me." She took a step, then another, stopping midway. Her gaze darted to the horizon, and Elias realized she was not just watching him, she was watching for something else. Something that could appear from the ruins without warning. He followed her eyes and saw nothing, but he understood. Her fear was not imagined. These ruins had been patrolled by machines, remnants of a long-abandoned defense system gone rogue. Some of them still activated if they detected movement. Elias had learned to recognize their faint energy signals from a distance. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I can see them too. I'll make sure nothing gets near you." Lyra's trembling lessened slightly. She hesitated again, then cautiously moved forward. Her steps were slow, careful, almost ritualistic. Elias's heart lifted. This was trust-forming, small step by small step. As she approached, he noticed her eyes glinting with intelligence and curiosity. There was a spark in them, the same spark he had seen in humans when they dared to explore the unknown. Despite everything she had lost, she had not given up. They reached the edge of the ruins together. Elias could see more details now. Fragments of metal structures that looked like towers. Glass-like panels cracked and blackened, and the almost musical hum of old technology still functioning beneath the surface. This place, It was once beautiful, Lyra said softly. Her voice carried sadness but also awe. Yes, Elias agreed. I can tell. But we can make sure it doesn't stay destroyed. There's still hope. Lyra's hands clenched slightly, and Elias realized she didn't just fear humans. She feared that hope could be a trick, that anyone promising safety might turn away or betray her. It was not fear born of imagination, but of memory and experience. He crouched closer to her level and extended his hand, not demanding trust, only offering it. I won't let anyone hurt you. You can trust me, Lyra. Her gaze lingered on his hand. For a long moment, the world felt like it held its breath. Then, with careful resolve, she placed her small hand in his. The trembling in her body did not disappear entirely, but it changed. Fear was still there, but so was courage. Thank you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Elias smiled gently. We'll find a safe place. You won't have to be afraid anymore. The wind shifted, blowing sand across the ruins. Elias took a mental note of the shadows. They moved in ways that suggested life, or at least motion from something that might activate without warning. Stay close, he advised. Some parts of these ruins are unpredictable, Lyra nodded. Her hand tightened around his, a silent agreement. She followed his lead as they began to move deeper into the ruined city. Elias could feel her fear radiating in tiny waves, but he also sensed determination. She wanted answers, and he wanted to help her find them. As they moved through the collapsed corridors, Elias pointed out places that might be safe for rest. Over there, he said, indicating a section where the walls were partially intact, we can sit for a while. Keep watch, but we won't be easy to spot here. Lyra crouched beside him, her small body tense but steady. I used to come here, she said. Before everything changed? Elias nodded, encouraging her to continue. Tell me, maybe it will help us both. Her voice grew slightly stronger. There was a market, and gardens. Children would play here. It was full of life. And now, just dust. She paused, fighting the trembling that rose again in her throat. I didn't think anyone would. Care to remember? Care, Elias said sincerely. And I care about helping you and your people rebuild. One step at a time. We'll start by making sure you're safe. Lyra's eyes softened, but the tremble did not leave entirely. Elias realized it never would, not completely. It was a part of who she was now. Trauma left marks, but courage could coexist with fear. He had seen it many times on human faces, and now he saw it mirrored in hers. Hours passed as they navigated the ruins. Elias explained what he could about the dangers, and Lyra shared what she knew about the ancient structures, pointing out places of interest with a mix of pride and sorrow. Despite the desolation, a bond formed between them, silent and strong. Elias knew the path ahead would not be easy, but he also knew that trust, once given, could move mountains or, in this case, perhaps save a civilization. As night fell, the ruins took on a different character. Shadows deepened, and the faint hum of the old machinery became more noticeable. Elias made sure to keep them both hidden in a partially collapsed building, using the walls as shields. Tomorrow, he whispered to Lyra, we'll find more. We'll find answers. Lyra nodded, her hand still clutching his. The trembling had faded slightly, but remained a reminder of the past she carried. Elias didn't need to ask what it meant. He already knew. Fear was memory, but courage was choice, and she had chosen to move forward, for the first time in a long while. Elias felt hope stir inside him, not just for her, but for the possibility that humans and aliens could find understanding, even after so much destruction. And as the stars began to shine over the ruins, Elias knew one thing for certain. Lyra had approached cautiously, trembling with fear, but in that trembling was the spark that could light a new dawn. The first light of dawn stretched over the ruined city, painting the crumbling towers in soft shades of orange and gold. Elias Kane stirred, careful not to wake Lyra, who had curled up against the rubble for warmth. Her small chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, but the tremble she had carried all day still lingered, faint but persistent. Elias had spent years navigating hostile planets, encountering creatures and civilizations that tested every part of his mind and body, yet nothing had prepared him for the fragile, careful trust of a single alien child whose entire world had been lost. He knew that her trembling was not just fear. It was a language of memory, of pain, of hope that had not yet dared to bloom fully. "Lyra," he whispered gently, brushing a stray strand of shimmering blue hair from her face. "It's time to move. There's more I want to show you." Her eyes fluttered open, wide with caution. She studied him silently for a long moment, then nodded. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. "To a safer place," Elias replied. "There's a hidden area beneath the ruins. Not many people lore machines can get in there. It's a good place to rest, to plan, and to find answers." Lyra hesitated, then stood carefully, her small form moving as though the weight of the ruins pressed down on her. Elias offered his hand, and this time she accepted it without hesitation. Each step they took together built a bridge of trust, silent but stronger than any words could convey, as they navigated the narrow corridors and fallen bridges. Lyra began to speak more freely. I used to play here with my friends," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of sadness and nostalgia. "We would run across these towers and the gardens. The gardens were full of light and music." "I haven't seen that in a long time." Elias listened, nodding. "I can imagine it. Places like this, they leave marks on us. But the memories, they're alive inside you. And maybe, together, we can make new ones." Lyra looked at him, surprised by the gentleness in his tone. It was so different from what she had expected from humans. You care about the past?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I care about you," Elias said firmly. "The past is important because it teaches us what we can do better. And right now, I want to make sure you are safe." The words seemed to settle something inside Lyra. Her trembling eased slightly, and she walked with more confidence. They reached a small hidden chamber beneath the ruins, a place where the ceiling had partially collapsed, leaving a shaft of sunlight to illuminate the dust motes floating in the air. Elias gestured for her to sit. "This will be our base for now," he said. "You can rest, and then we can explore more of the city. There are secrets here, things your people built long ago. Maybe they can help us." Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she moved closer to inspect the walls. She traced her fingers over the strange carvings and faded symbols, her small hands careful not to disturb the fragile surfaces. These are old records," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone could understand them anymore." Elias leaned over her shoulder, studying the markings. "I don't understand all of it," he admitted, "but I can help figure it out. Together, maybe we can discover something important." For the first time, Lyra's trembling seemed to transform into excitement. Her fear was still there, a shadow on the edge of her resolve, but it was balanced by determination. Elias noticed the shift and smiled inwardly. She was learning that safety could exist, even in a place filled with memories of danger. Hours passed as Elias and Lyra worked together to examine the ruins. She pointed out areas of interest: hidden rooms, partially preserved technology, and intricate carvings that told stories of her ancestors. Elias admired her knowledge, impressed by how a child could hold so much understanding about the past. "You know these ruins better than I do," he said. "You've seen this world before it changed." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and I want to help it again. But I am afraid that humans might destroy it further." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Not all humans are the same," he said. "Some of us want to help, not harm. I promise I'm one of them." Lyra's eyes met his, searching for honesty, and found it. The fear in her gaze began to soften. She realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was choosing to move forward despite it. And with Elias by her side, she felt she could face what came next. Their exploration was interrupted by a faint hum, a vibration beneath the ruins that made the dust on the floor tremble. Elias immediately tensed. "Machines," he muttered. Some of the old defense systems still work. They're probably scanning for movement. Lyra's body stiffened, and the familiar tremble returned. Will they hurt us? She asked. Elias shook his head. Not if we're careful. Stay close to me. We'll move slowly and quietly. Together, they navigated the tunnels. Elias using his knowledge of human engineering and survival tactics, and Lyra using her memory of the city to avoid traps and dangerous zones. The combination was surprisingly effective. Each step they took was deliberate, each decision balanced between caution and curiosity. After what felt like hours, they reached a small open courtyard, partially preserved, where sunlight streamed in through a broken ceiling. Plants had begun to grow again in patches of soil, and tiny streams of water trickled along cracks in the stone. The sight brought a smile to Lyra's face. It's beautiful, she said softly, kneeling to touch a sprouting plant. Life is still here. Elias knelt beside her. Yes, he said. Even in the hardest places, life finds a way. That's why we can rebuild Lyra, not just the city, but trust, courage, and hope. Lyra's trembling decreased as she absorbed his words. She realized that her fear was not a weakness. It was a guide, telling her where danger might lie, but also showing her the importance of choosing safety and courage. Elias had not forced her to feel safe. He had shown her the possibility of it. She had decided to take it. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Elias knew they needed more than just a safe spot. They needed a plan to protect the knowledge hidden in the ruins, and perhaps a way to contact others who might help. But for now, it was enough to rest, to breathe, and to allow the fragile bond of trust to grow stronger. Lyra turned to him, a shy smile appearing on her face. Thank you, Elias, for helping me, for not being like the others. Elias smiled back. We're all capable of being different, Lyra, and you've reminded me that even in broken worlds, kindness can survive. They spent the afternoon exploring small corners of the courtyard, discovering fragments of Lyra's past, laughing softly at memories she shared, and imagining how the city could look one day if it were restored. Every discovery was a small victory. Every moment together a step toward healing. As evening approached, the light softened to a gentle amber. Lyra's hand remained in Elias's, a silent promise of trust. The trembling had not vanished entirely, but it no longer controlled her. She had chosen courage over fear, and in doing so had formed a connection that neither of them would forget. Elias looked at her, feeling a mix of admiration and responsibility. He knew the journey ahead would be challenging. Machines still lurked, dangers were hidden, and her people's future depended on the choices they made. Yet, in this quiet moment, he also knew that together they could face whatever came next. For Lyra, the day had begun with fear and trembling. By its end, she had discovered that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward with someone she trusted. And for Elias, he realized that sometimes the smallest acts extending a hand, offering protection, showing respect could change the course of history for an entire civilization. The stars began to appear in the sky, faint at first and then brighter, casting their glow over the ruins. Elias and Lyra sat quietly, side by side, watching as the world shifted from day to night. The city might have been broken, but hope was alive, growing in the small. Brave hearts that refused to surrender, and as the night settled over the ruins, Elias understood something profound. Trust could be built, fear could be transformed, and trembling hands could one day hold the power to restore worlds. The next morning, the ruins seemed different. The sunlight pierced through cracks in the ceiling, casting long patterns across the broken stone and metal. Elias Kane stood at the edge of the hidden courtyard, surveying the path ahead. He could feel the faint vibration in the ground, the subtle pulse of old machinery still active beneath the city. It was a reminder. These ruins, though abandoned by people, were not empty. Lyra stood beside him, her small hands gripping his arm. "Are there dangers?" she asked, her voice soft but alert. The tremble she had carried the previous day was still there, though now it was smaller, steadier, quiet rhythm of caution rather than fear. Yes, Elias said carefully. There are machines. Old defense systems, designed to protect the city long ago. Some are inactive, but some still move. They react to heat, sound, or motion. We need to be careful. Lyra nodded, her large eyes scanning the ruins. I remember the hunters, she whispered. They were always near, always watching. Elias knew the stories well. Yes, and they might still be here. But I've dealt with machines like these before. We'll stay safe if we move slowly and pay attention. He led her through a narrow corridor that opened into a larger hall. Dust motes floated in the sunlight that streamed through shattered walls. The hall was lined with pillars, some still standing, some fallen, their surfaces etched with alien symbols. Lyra paused at one of the intact pillars and traced her fingers along the carvings. These tell stories. Of heroes, she said quietly. Of people who protected the city when it was alive. Elias watched her, impressed. Even in ruins, the stories survive. That's important. That's why we can keep hope alive. As they moved deeper into the hall, the faint hum beneath the floor grew stronger. Elias paused and crouched low, placing a hand on the ground. They're here, he said softly. Machines, scanning. We need to be invisible. Follow me exactly. Lyra mirrored his movements, crouching low and stepping carefully over debris. She had learned quickly, her fear replaced by a focused determination. Every time her trembling threatened to return, she reminded herself to breathe, to move, and to trust Elias. The first machine appeared without warning, a small, spider-like drone skittering along the floor, its sensors glowing red. Lyra froze. Elias placed a calming hand on her back. Slowly. Don't make sudden movements. The drone scanned the area for heat signatures. Elias stepped in front of Lyra, crouching so that his larger body blocked the sensors. The drone paused, hesitated, and then moved on. Lyra exhaled quietly, relief washing over her face. You're protecting me, she whispered. Yes, Elias said. And you're helping too. You remember the safe paths, the hidden tunnels. We make a good team. Lyra's eyes brightened, and for the first time that morning, she smiled. The trembling that had haunted her moments ago had not disappeared, but it had become a Tula reminder to stay alert. Not a chain holding her back. They continued through the hall. Navigating around broken walls and unstable floors, Elias noticed the intricate designs etched into the walls, symbols that glowed faintly when touched by sunlight. These might be old power conduits, he explained. If we understand them, they could tell us where the city's defenses are weakest or strongest. Lyra leaned closer to study a glowing pattern. My people. We used these to protect ourselves, she said. We didn't know humans would destroy so much. Elias shook his head, regret in his voice. Not all of us are like that. Some of us want to help, not harm. And right now, helping you is my mission. As they reached a small chamber, a sudden sound echoed through the hall, a mechanical worry, growing louder. Elias froze, his eyes scanning the shadows. Lyra pressed against his side, trembling slightly, but holding her composure. A larger drone, Elias muttered. Probably a patrol unit. Stay still. Don't make noise. The machine moved into view. A larger version of the spider-like drones, with multiple legs and a round sensor at its center. Its red light swept across the floor, glinting off the metal and stone. Lyra's breath quickened. Elias adjusted his position, creating a barrier between her and the machine. The drone paused, as if sensing something unusual. Elias held his breath, then slowly tilted his head, directing the machine away with a calculated movement. Lyra mirrored his subtle gestures. The drone hesitated, then turned and moved down a different corridor. Lyra exhaled, relief flooding her face. You saved me, she whispered. Elias shook his head gently. We saved each other. You guided us through the ruins, remembered the safe paths. We make a good team. We continued deeper into the underground, where the ruins became more complex. Twisting corridors, hidden chambers, and remnants of alien technology stretched out before them. Lyra's curiosity grew, and she began to speak more freely. Do humans explore like this? She asked, her voice filled with wonder. Elias chuckled softly. We explore for knowledge, for adventure, for understanding. But not all humans have respect for other worlds. That's why I'm careful, and why I need to earn your trust. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. I think I trust you. Not completely, but enough. That's all we need for now, Elias said. Step by step, trust grows slowly, like a plant. As they moved, Elias noticed a section of the floor that glowed faintly under the sunlight, filtering through cracks. He paused, examining it closely. This is part of an old energy grid, he said. It powers the defense systems, probably even the drones we've seen. If we can understand it, we can avoid detection more easily. Lyra knelt beside him, studying the glowing lines. I remember something similar in the archives. My people, we could redirect energy. Maybe we can do it here too, Elias nodded, impressed. Then let's see if we can, together. They worked quietly, Lyra's small hands moving confidently over the patterns while Elias assisted. Slowly, they learned to read the faint signals in the floor, predicting where drones might move and which corridors were safest. The trembling that had marked Lyra's fear became a rhythm of awareness, guiding her to act with care and courage. Hours passed in this delicate dance of observation and movement. The patrol drones never approached them closely, diverted by their careful planning. Each time they succeeded, Lyra's eyes shone with pride. The fear that had defined her arrival now coexisted with determination and skill. As they reached a larger chamber filled with broken machinery, Elias paused to survey the area. This place might hold more knowledge, he said, or at least tools we can use. We should explore carefully, but there could be something important here. Lyra stepped forward, curiosity lighting her face. Yes, maybe answers. For my people, for the city. Together they moved into the room, careful to avoid unstable floors and loose debris. Ancient consoles lined the walls, some flickering with residual power. Lyra traced her fingers over the symbols, whispering softly as she recognized patterns from her childhood. Elias watched her, feeling a mixture of admiration and hope. She was small, fragile in appearance, yet strong in ways that mattered most. Her trembling no longer represented weakness, it was a sign of her awareness, her care, and her growing courage. Suddenly, one of the flickering consoles hummed louder. A panel slid open, revealing a storage compartment filled with preserved devices. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide with awe. Tools. Old tools, she said. Maybe we can. Restore something, Elias smiled. Exactly. This is why we came here. To find what remains and learn from it. To protect it and use it wisely. Lyra nodded, her hand brushing against his. Thank you for helping me, he nodded back. No, thank you for trusting me, and for teaching me that even in ruins, hope can survive. As evening approached, Elias guided Lyra back toward their hidden courtyard. The sun cast long shadows, painting the ruins in gold and amber. They moved cautiously, but with confidence now. Knowing that they had navigated one of the most dangerous sections safely, Lyra glanced back at the ruins they had explored. The hunters. They might still be here, she said. Yes, Elias replied. But we've learned more about them. And we've learned more about each other. Tomorrow, we can plan the next step. Maybe even find a way to use what we've discovered to make the city safer. Lyra's eyes sparkled in the fading light. I want to help, she said. I want to do more than survive. I want to protect the city. And maybe help humans understand, too. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. You're already doing that. One step at a time. That's how change begins. As the stars appeared in the sky, Elias and Lyra sat quietly, side by side, watching the ruined city. Machines might still lurk in the shadows, but courage, trust, and determination were stronger. Lyra's trembling was no longer just fear, it was awareness. A reminder that even the smallest and most vulnerable could become heroes in their own way. And as night settled over the city, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. Hidden dangers remained, but together they could face anything. The bond between them, fragile but unbreakable, was a force that no machine, no ruin, and no past destruction could destroy. The next morning, the ruins seemed almost alive under the soft, golden sunlight. Dust particles floated in the beams that slipped through cracks in the shattered walls, and the faint hum of old energy pulsed beneath the ground. Elias Kane and Lyra prepared to explore a section of the city that had remained. Largely untouched, a place rumored to contain the archives of her ancestors. "This way," Lyra whispered, leading him through a narrow corridor. Her eyes were bright with determination, her trembling barely noticeable now. The archives. They might hold answers. About the city, about the old people, maybe even about us. Elias followed closely, careful to avoid loose debris. "We'll go slowly, step by step, and stay alert. The machines we encountered yesterday might still be active." Lyra nodded, her small hand brushing against the wall as they moved. "I know, I remember the paths and the traps. I'll help guide us." They reached a massive, partially collapsed doorway, engraved with intricate symbols that glowed faintly in the sunlight. The doorway led to a large chamber, and Elias could feel the weight of history in the air. "This must be it," Lyra whispered. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with awe. "The archives. They've survived." Inside, rows of consoles and storage devices stood in careful order, remarkably preserved despite the ruin surrounding them. The air smelled faintly metallic, and faint blue light pulsed from some of the devices as if the city itself were breathing. Lyra moved closer to the consoles, her fingers tracing the alien symbols. "My ancestors built these to store knowledge," she said softly. "All the history, the science, the art, everything. And it's still here." Elias knelt beside her, examining the devices. "Incredible," he murmured. "Even in a city destroyed by war, knowledge can survive. That's hope, Lyra. That's what we can use to rebuild." Lyra's eyes shone as she began to activate one of the consoles. With a soft hum, the device flickered to life, projecting a holographic display into the air. Symbols and images floated above the console, telling stories of the city's past, towering gardens, advanced machines, people, and children laughing and learning, and the great achievements of her civilization. Elias watched in fascination. "These people, they were amazing," he said quietly. "Their knowledge, their art, it's unlike anything I've seen." Lyra's eyes were wide with pride and sorrow. "Yes, but humans. Destroyed so much. I thought it was all gone." "You didn't think the knowledge could survive," Elias said gently. "But it did. And now we have a chance to protect it, and maybe restore some of it." As Lyra studied the holograms, she began to recognize patterns and mechanisms she had learned as a child. This device, it can redirect energy. And this one can protect areas of the city automatically. If we learn how to use them, we can make the city safe again. Elias nodded, impressed by her understanding. "Then that's our next step. We study, learn, and apply. Carefully, step by step." They spent hours in the chamber, deciphering symbols, examining ancient devices, and piecing together the wisdom of Lyra's ancestors. The room seemed alive with possibilities. Lyra's excitement grew with each discovery, and her trembling, once a sign of fear, now reflected anticipation and focus, but the ruins were not entirely safe. A faint vibration beneath the floor reminded Elias that danger still lingered. "Lyra," he said softly, "we need to be careful. Some of the old defense systems might still activate. We don't want to trigger them." Lyra nodded, her fingers hovering over a panel. "I remember the triggers. We can avoid them if we move slowly and watch carefully." Together, they navigated the room, activating one device at a time and studying its functions. Lyra explained how the energy conduits could be rerouted to power shields, protect safe zones, and even disable dormant patrol machines. Elias helped where he could, applying his knowledge of human engineering to complement her understanding. By late afternoon, they had uncovered a central control device, larger than any they had seen before. It hummed with energy, glowing softly as if aware of their presence. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes wide. This could restore part of the city. Not everything, but it's a start. Elias crouched beside her, studying the controls. We'll need a plan, carefully. One wrong move could damage the systems permanently. Lyra nodded. I know, but I want to try. For the city, for my people. Her small hands hovered over the controls, trembling slightly with excitement rather than fear. Then we do it together, Elias said. Step by step. You guide me with your knowledge, I guide you with mine. We'll restore what we can. They spent hours working on the central control system, redirecting energy flows, activating old shields, and securing safe zones. Slowly, lights flickered on throughout the ruins, and faint energy shields shimmered over key areas. The city was awakening piece by piece, under their careful guidance. Lyra's face lit up with awe as she watched the city respond to their efforts. It's alive again, she whispered. Not like before, but alive, Elias smiled. And it's because of your knowledge, your courage, and your willingness to try despite fear. The trembling in your hands, it became strength. That's remarkable, Lyra. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the chamber. They paused, resting, and watching the city respond to their efforts. Lyra's hand remained in Elias's, not out of fear, but as a gesture of trust and partnership. Suddenly, a soft alarm echoed from one of the distant consoles. Elias's eyes narrowed. We might have triggered a dormant security system, he said. We need to check it quickly, but carefully. Lyra nodded, her excitement tempered by focus. Yes, we can do this. Together. They approached the console and studied the alert. A small section of the city was showing increased energy readings, probably a patrol machine that had reactivated. Elias glanced at Lyra. We can handle this. We'll redirect the energy, and it should deactivate it without harm. Lyra worked quickly, her fingers moving confidently over the controls. Elias guided her, providing technical advice and ensuring they did not make errors. Slowly, the alert subsided, and the readings returned to normal. Lyra exhaled, her trembling disappearing completely. It worked, she said, smiling. We did it, Elias smiled back. Yes, and this is just the beginning. There's more to discover, more to protect, and more to restore. But today, we've already done something remarkable. As evening settled over the city, the two sat in the control chamber, watching the light shimmer across the ruins. Lyra's eyes reflected the glow of the restored devices, her small face alight with pride and hope. Do you think humans can learn? She asked softly. Learn to respect worlds like mine. Elias considered this. Some humans can. Not all, but some. And I think you just reminded me of that. Knowledge, courage, and trust. They can change the future. Not just here, but everywhere. Lyra smiled, a small, genuine smile. Then, maybe there's hope. For the city, for my people, and for humans too. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Yes, and we'll make sure that hope grows, step by step, together. The city hummed softly around them, alive with energy, history, and potential. Lyra had approached cautiously, trembling with fear. But now her trembling had become a symbol of courage, curiosity, and determination. Together, they had uncovered the first pieces of a future that once seemed impossible. And as night fell, casting the ruins in silver and blue under the stars, Elias realized that the real power of the city was not in the machines or the archives. It was in the small, brave hearts that chose to act, to trust, and to protect. Lyra rested against him for a moment, exhausted but exhilarated. Thank you, Elias, for helping me. For believing in me? Elias smiled. No, thank you. For showing me what courage looks like, even in the smallest hands. The ruins, once silent and lifeless, were beginning to respond to hope, trust, and determination. And together, human and alien would continue to uncover the secrets of the past, protect the present, and build the future. The stars above sparkled brightly, reflecting in Lyra's wide, determined eyes. Tomorrow, they would explore even further. There would be challenges, perhaps dangers beyond anything they had faced. But for now, in this quiet chamber filled with energy, light, and ancient knowledge, hope had taken its first real step toward a new dawn. The first light of dawn bathed the ruins in soft gold, painting fractured towers and collapsed walls in a warm glow. Elias Kane and Lyra stood together at the edge of the central courtyard, surveying the city that had once been lost. The faint hum of energy pulsed beneath their feet, a reminder of the work they had done in the archives the day before. Lyra's eyes sparkled with anticipation. "It's starting to feel alive again," she whispered. "Not like before, but alive." Elias smiled. "Yes. Slowly, carefully, we've reawakened parts of the city. And today, we'll take the next steps." The path ahead was not easy. Though the Central Archives had given them knowledge and control over some systems, much of the city remained in ruins, and dormant machines still lurked in shadows. Elias knew that navigating through them would require patience, intelligence, and teamwork. "Ready?" he asked, glancing at Lyra. She nodded firmly, her trembling completely gone now. Determination had replaced fear. "Yes. Let's go." They moved through the city, their careful steps guided by the knowledge they had uncovered. Lyra led the way to areas where energy conduits could be rerouted, creating safe zones while minimizing risks from lingering patrol machines. Elias followed, blocking her when necessary, and using his experience to keep them hidden from potential dangers. At one junction, Lyra paused, her hand resting on a glowing symbol etched into a pillar. This is the main energy hub for the city," she said softly. "If we activate it correctly, it can stabilize much of the central area." Elias crouched beside her, studying the patterns. "It's risky," he said. "If we miscalculate, we could trigger systems we can't control. But I think together we can do it." Lyra smiled faintly, her hands steady as she began to manipulate the controls. Elias guided her movements, combining his engineering knowledge with her understanding of the alien systems. Slowly, energy began to flow through the conduits, illuminating corridors and sparking shields over key areas. "Look," Lyra exclaimed, pointing as lights flickered across the broken city. "It's working. Parts of the city, they're waking up." Elias's eyes widened in admiration. "You did this," he said. "Your knowledge, your courage. It made this possible." They spent hours moving from one sector to another, restoring energy, activating defenses, and securing safe zones. With each success, Lyra's confidence grew. Her trembling once, a sign of fear and uncertainty, had transformed completely into calm determination. She no longer hesitated, and each decision she made reflected not only intelligence, but wisdom beyond her years. By afternoon, they reached a small plaza in the heart of the city. Plants had begun to grow again, sprouting through cracks in the stone. Small streams of water, long blocked by debris, now flowed once more. Lyra knelt beside one of the streams, letting the cool water run through her hands. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Life. It never really left, did it?" Elias crouched beside her, smiling. "No. Life is resilient. And so are you." As they continued their work, a faint shadow moved in the distance, a small patrol drone, likely reactivated by the shifting energy. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, but her hands did not tremble. Elias gestured to her. "Stay calm. We can handle this." They approached the drone carefully, using the energy conduits to redirect its sensors and render it harmless. Lyra's small hands adjusted a panel while Elias guided her movements. Within minutes, the drone was deactivated safely, and the threat was gone. Lyra exhaled, smiling. "We did it. Together." "Yes," Elias agreed. "Everything we've done so far, it's because we worked as a team." By evening, much of the city's central area was stabilized. Lights shimmered across restored pathways, and the hum of energy flowed through conduits that had lain dormant for centuries. Lyra gazed at the glowing city, her eyes filled with wonder and pride. "It's not perfect," she said softly, "but it's a start. A new beginning." Lias nodded. "Yes, and beginnings are always important. Every step we take from here can make the future better." They paused in the central plaza, the setting sun casting long golden shadows across the city. Lyra's small hand rested in Elias's, a gesture of trust and friendship. The trembling that had accompanied her for so long was gone, replaced by confidence, courage, and hope. "Do you think my people could come back?" Lyra asked. Elias looked around at the city, alive with light and energy. "I do, and when they do, they will see what you've started. You've shown them hope, and that's the most important thing." Lyra smiled, a genuine smile that reflected pride and determination. "Then, I will keep helping. We'll make the city safe, and maybe humans will learn too, that we can work together." "Yes," Elias said. "We'll show that humans and aliens can rebuild together, that courage, trust, and care can create something stronger than fear or destruction." As night fell, the stars sparkled above the ruins, reflecting in Lyra's wide, determined eyes. The city, once silent and lifeless, now pulsed with possibility. Machines and devices hummed with energy, pathways glowed, small areas were already showing signs of restoration. Elias and Lyra sat quietly, side by side, watching the city respond to their efforts. "The journey isn't over," Elias said. "There's still work to do, challenges to face. But look at how far we've come." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and tomorrow we can do more. We can explore further, restore more, and maybe even reach my people." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll do it together, step by step, just like we've done since the beginning." The night grew deeper, and a gentle breeze whispered through the restored corridors, carrying with it the promise of life, growth, and new beginnings. Lyra leaned against Elias for a moment, tired but exhilarated, her small face illuminated by the soft glow of the city. "Thank you, Elias," she said quietly, "for trusting me, for believing in me, and for helping me see that hope is possible." Elias smiled warmly. "No, thank you, Lyra, for reminding me that courage can come from the smallest hearts, and that even in the ruins we can rebuild the future." As they rested, the city around them seemed to breathe a living testament to trust, determination, and the power of hope. Lyra had approached cautiously, trembling with fear, but she had chosen courage, learned to trust, and discovered that one small heart could make a difference for an entire civilization. By dawn, the first signs of real growth appeared in the restored sections, plants thriving in sunlight, water flowing through ancient channels, and energy humming steadily through conduits. The city was waking, piece by piece, guided by the care and courage of one human and one alien child. Elias stood and offered his hand to Lyra. "Ready for the next step?" Lyra grasped his hand firmly, her eyes shining with determination. "Yes, let's continue. For the city, for my people, and for the future." Together, they walked through the glowing ruins, side by side, their footsteps echoing softly. The city had begun to breathe again, and so had hope. Trembling had given way to courage. Fear had transformed into determination, and together, human and alien had proven that even the smallest hands can build a new dawn. And as the stars faded with the first light of morning, the city stood as a symbol. Broken worlds could be restored, trust could be rebuilt, and hope could shine brighter than any shadow of the past. Lyra's hand rested in Ilias's, steady and warm. For both of them, this was more than survival. It was the beginning of a journey that could change their world, and perhaps many others, forever. They had faced fear, uncovered knowledge, navigated danger, and restored life where there had been none. And now, together, they would continue, proving that courage, care, and trust could create a brighter future. The new dawn had arrived.